Welcome, everyone. So Judge Wood is out of town, and he's asked me to call the meeting to order. So Quorum Court meeting's now in order. We're going to have to elect the chair for this meeting. I'll open the floor for nominations.
I nominate J.P. Yones. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against it? Thank you. J.P. Cunningham, can you lead us in a pledge and prayer?
Please join me in sending out thoughts and prayers to all the people that have been affected by the flooding in Arkansas and Oklahoma. And in the days to come, keep everyone safe. We seek blessings on the tasks before us. Bless our efforts with clear insight, our deliberations with wisdom, our work with clarity and accuracy, and our decisions with impartiality. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So are there any changes to the agenda? Do we say all in favor for this one? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So it's approved. Are there any I can't say the word, Brian. Preliminary motions.
I'll move that we suspend the rules and read the ordinance by title only.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, at this time, we will allow citizens to speak to any issue they desire. We will have an allotted 15 minutes for comments. Each citizen will be limited to 3 minutes. When you come up to speak, please say your name and where you live. Are there any citizens wishing to make any comments?
You sit here.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate being here and taking the time, and I appreciate the good job you guys do for the citizens of Washington County.
Will you state your name and address, please?
It's over. Yeah, it was over.
It's on?
It's off now. It was over.
Okay. So you can hear me better. I wish it's called something besides Quorum Court. It makes me nervous, court stuff, but my name is Ken Donk. Right now I'm living in Springdale, Arkansas. But my wife and I are building a house out of Elkins. So, anyway, to just give you a little history, I have a college degree from the U of A. I started Dunk Automatic Sprinkler Company in 1981. I've served as president of Arkansas Associated Builders and Contractors. In 1998, I sold my company to Grinnell Fire Protection, a Tyco subsidiary. Before I started DFS in 2005, I was a regional manager for Simplex Grinnell, and Simplex Grinnell was part of a Tyco before being bought by JCI. I'm very familiar with large corporations, and for transparency, I'm not associated with any political party. My company does perform inspections and testing on fire alarm systems in some of the Washington County facilities. I own a farm in Washington County outside the city limits of Elkins. And let me be clear, I have not had any direct business dealings with JCI. I do not have an axe to grind. I don't know about their equipment or anything. So what I want to do is just go through what I've seen in the contract that I think you guys should consider. I became aware of the JCI proposal less than 2 weeks ago. I attended the last Quorum Court meeting. During the meeting, I heard concerns about warranty issues and that there seemed to be some confusion. I've read the proposed contract. There is no extended warranty offered by JCI other than what the manufacturer's warranty is, and the length of warranties are not given except labor installation, which is just a year-long warranty. Please read item 7 on page 2 of the contract under warranty to understand exactly what kind of warranty you're getting. Another concern is there's no completion date mentioned in your contract. That is somewhat alarming, as your payment schedule only allows the last payment of $400,278 to be made at final completion. Otherwise, you have paid 95%.
Sir, I'm sorry, time's up.
My time's up? Oh, my God. I've got copies of this, if anybody would like to have a copy. It kind of goes on about the contract, if you so desire.
Thank you. Sir, do you want to go ahead and pass out the copies?
Oh, yeah.
Please, thank you.
Would you like me to go ahead and start?
Go ahead.
Okay.
What's your name and where do you live?
Jason Steele. I live at 2396 Wildcat Creek Boulevard, Springdale, Arkansas. And basically, I would just like to know, was an RFP ever published so that you could solicit from other state-approved ESCOs? There are 2 others, Snyder Electric and Siemens. But, you know, if we're wanting to compare apples to apples, have you even looked at the other people's apple cart? And you just looked at one, are you sure you're getting the best dollar, you know, the best product for your dollar? Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a discussion, or is it just? Okay. Any other public comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes, JP.
may I make a motion to let this gentleman continue with his presentation?
I'll second the motion to suspend the rules and let Mr. Dunk continue his,
We want you to talk a little more.
Do you have a second on your motion?
Yes.
myself.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Okay, and you'll have paid 95% of the entire contract, $8,005,529, in 9 months once you enter the contract. On top of the $8 million contract, Washington County will be paying $448,063 for MV services over the course of 20 years. MV stands for Measurement and Verification. So they're going to be giving you the measurements, verify it, but they charge you, and there's a chart in the contract what that is for each year. But it totals $448,000. I don't know about you guys, but I've looked over these formulas that would determine the savings, and have to confess that my college education must have been a little short, because it's pretty complicated. Not only that, but there's quantities are based on 80% confidence and 20% precision. Also stated, the savings is not the responsibility of JCI due to inefficiencies arising from improper operation or lack of maintenance of the system, meaning they have an out. Reading through the contract and supplement, there appears to me to be quite a few outs that they could use to not meet the savings that are being guaranteed. If you want some real interesting readings, go to Supplement 2, Assured Performance Guarantee, Paragraph C, Item 2, 2 little i's. It appears to me that JCI is entitled to the savings above the stated guarantee. And they are the ones that provide the MV, the measurement and the verification, to the county. So it's really likely that you will be writing a check for anything above the savings guarantee, and that all depends on how the baseline is formulated. Another concern in reading and trying to understand the savings formula, they have stated, there are some of the savings being added as avoiding capital expenditures. This is what you would have to spend on HVAC units, fire alarm, lighting, and other type of capital expenditures that has nothing to do with energy savings, but has everything to do with making it look like you that you have saved more than the cost of the contract. One of the capital avoidance expenditures for FIM 7 is the fire alarm. What you spend now on this contract is amortized over 10 years as a savings that is added to your total savings, which equals $405,985. So I did the simple math based on what I've read and heard in the meetings to the Finance Committee I viewed on YouTube. I think I understood that the county spends $500,000 a year in utilities. If you spend the $8 million plus the $448,000 on this contract, and you did away with all your utility costs, it would take 16.9 years to be paid back. Forget the formulas, but do the simple math. Some other simple math, under the savings configured for the lighting in the warehouse, it is calculated to be burning lights for 3,000 hours per year. A 40-hour work week times 52 weeks comes to 2,080 hours of usage through a normal work week. So, by their discovery process, they have indicated that these lights burn for 58 hours a week. That calculates that they're saying in the baseline that these lights are on 7 days a week at more than 8 hours per day. I would kind of question that, but. So I'm really left to wonder as to how accurate the baseline is and the amount of actual savings that you will be realized. But heck, they factor a 3% increase in utility costs each year. That helps the saving formula. And it looks like to their benefit. By formulating the baseline to figure the savings could mean you will be writing checks for the overage, but your county checkbook would tell you differently. Another question I had is why there's a lot of contractors in Northwest Arkansas. Why weren't anybody, electricians, HVAC people contacted up here? The electrician, they stated at the Finance Committee, is out of North Little Rock. So why spend money for out-of-town expenses and that sort of thing when you can get qualified people here locally? Another question that y'all should have is how many of these contracts has JCI performed in Northwest Arkansas? If not any, please give some references of customers that you currently have or have had contracts with. Be sure they include names and numbers. I know that they have stated huge numbers across the USA, but what has this particular office done and where are the installations in Arkansas located? As part of a large corporation, Tyco, with the Simplex Grinnell thing, I can tell you from experience, being a regional manager, that not all offices in a major corporation are the same. So they can say they got $2 billion in these kind of contracts, but what have they done here? So where's the references? So I could go on, but I'd like to wrap this up with a statement I heard in the last meeting. We're getting a fire alarm upgrade for free. Well, JCI stated that they are teaming up with a contractor out of Texas that has bought Arcom. If for one moment you think Arcom is doing the installation for free, you would be sadly mistaken. Somewhere in the $8 million contract is the money to pay Arcom. Nothing is free. My antennas go up a bunch when they tell me that kind of thing. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
I just wanted to see if maybe Mr. Gonzalez or the representative from Johnson, JCI, would like to respond to any of those. Yeah.
I mean, if he wants to speak.
We're not doing citizens' comments.
Oh, you want me to go up there?
Move on to the agenda
Yeah.
and close
Well,
citizens'
I mean-
comments.
Right, if,
Yeah, but
thank you.
procedurally, can we end citizens' comments and move on to the agenda and open it up
I'd like a motion to suspend the rules to allow him to speak.
There's still time for somebody to speak. We still have 4 minutes and 22 seconds on citizen comments. So if he wants to speak in citizen comments, he's more than welcome to do so.
Go ahead.
Do I only have 4 minutes? Okay, so there was a lot there, and I was writing it down as fast as I could. So truthfully, I hope that you got a lot of those questions written down when they perked your interest, because I want to answer all of them. Not the least of which is while I'm not a citizen of Washington County, I'm an Arkansan, and we have an office in Springdale, and I have a dozen colleagues that live in Washington County that are taxpayers in this county. I'm a sixth-generation Arkansan, and I'm not interested in the government participating in any type of illegal procurement or suspect
I'm
procurement.
sorry. So can you state your name
Yes.
and where do you live?
Yeah, I'm Alex Ray, and I'm the Development Director for Johnson Controls Performance Infrastructure, and my team and I have developed the performance contract that's being considered and questioned tonight. I want to hit best I could in reverse order of as I was writing those down. His last comment about nothing is free, that was Justice Duncan that said that at the end. If you go back and watch the archive, because when he said that, my eyebrows kind of went up because nothing is free. The idea is that what he meant by that is it's being amortized over the life of the project, over 10 years of the 20-year project. You are paying for it with the capital avoidance that he referenced, which is the point right above that. The alternative is paying for it in one cash issuance. You know, so instead of saying, hey, Quorum Court, this is Dwight, I need $500,000 or $425,000, whatever it is. I need several $100,000 to install fire alarms in these 5 buildings. Please stroke me a purchase order. This is a way for the county to spread that cost out over 10 years of the 20-year job. Nothing is free. This project is made up out of 3 revenue buckets. Can y'all see my screen? Is it presenting? We're ready when you are, ma'am.
Yes.
This project is funded out of 3 revenue streams. The majority of it is utility savings. It is what we will guarantee is a reduction in the county's expenditure and consumption. So it is both a fiscally economical way to save money, but it's also an environmentally sustainable way to reduce the county's consumption in those 3 buckets: kilowatts, kilowatt hours, gallons of water, and natural gas. That amount, that number we're talking about, $8.6 million, is what our firm is guaranteeing at the end of the 20 years. And that's broken up a year at a time. The other 2 buckets, that's the bottom bucket, is calculated O&M savings. That's where Dwight, which this is his prerogative, but I'm going to speak for him, can demonstrate to you in his operations and maintenance expenditures that by replacing this aged infrastructure, because if you remember, we talked about it last time, the HVAC equipment is the lion's share of that. With the exception of 2 units, we're not replacing any HVAC that's not at least 15 years old. Plenty of it 17, 18, 20, 22 years old. The O&M savings, operations and maintenance, is we're taking this old antiquated infrastructure out of the field, and Dwight and the team, the administrative team, agreed that yes, on a case-by-case basis, on a building-by-building basis, because I said last time we probably had 7.5 hours in this, building by building by building, your county administration said, yes, this building is worth $5,000 a year. The only one I can remember off the top of my head is the Juvenile Detention Center, that it's worth $10,000 a year to replace all 14 units that are on the roof. So that's how the O&M savings comes, and that applies for electric, gas, water, whatever, light bulbs. You know, we're not buying light bulbs anymore, so whatever we're spending as a line item in the budget to buy new bulbs and ballasts, we're going to capture that as an O&M savings. And that repeats itself across all the FIMs except fire. Fire stands alone. It is only being funded by this capital avoidance because you're going to spend it in today's money but amortize it over 10 years. We're essentially financing the fire alarm in this project. The alternative is to write a check.
We need a motion to suspend the rules to extend.
Do we have a motion to suspend the rules and extend her time to speak? All in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Go ahead.
I don't get a vote. Thank you. Thank you, Justice Harbison. So the avoided capital expenditure is just that. The majority of the performance contracts that are done in Arkansas, of which we have done numerous, are primarily funded through utility savings. That's what we're going to guarantee. So when I'm telling you it's $8.6 million over 20 years, Johnson Controls is guaranteeing annually, there's an annual reconciliation date, that if there's a shortfall, we will stroke the county a check to make them whole. We do that about 1% of the time. As I talk to you today, Johnson Controls is guaranteeing $6.5 billion. That's one of those big numbers he referenced. And we have an annual shortfall payment of about 1%, because it is, like I said, still a human enterprise. If one of my engineers fails to calculate something, that risk is mine to bear. That's the risk transfer from the county to the ESCO. That happens. There are currently 12 active projects in Arkansas that we're doing. We have done numerous projects, and when I say active, I mean they're currently in development, in implementation, they're in construction, and the majority of them are in repayment. We are enjoying a 65-year relationship with the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. They have done 3 phases of this. They're currently doing a 4th phase of this. They have done 2 of those phases with us. They are one of our references. The U of A, Scott Turley, the director of the physical plant, you may know him, Scott Turley, in around 2008, and you'll have to forgive me, my dates are a little fuzzy because that was before my time in this role, we did a steam plant enhancement. The steam plant that sits behind the engineering building there in the middle of campus, right in front of the north of the parking deck, we added several residence life buildings to the heating loop, the steam loop, the heating water loop. Well, our calculations were wrong, and over the next 2 years, Johnson Controls paid the University of Arkansas physical plant what ended up being about $1.8 million in shortfall payments while we rectified the situation. Because either we're going to rectify it and stop paying checks, or we're going to pay checks until the contract term ends. There are very few outs, and I'll get to that in a moment. Today, Mr. Mike Johnson, the Associate Vice Chancellor of the Physical Plant, and Scott Turley, the Physical Plant Director, are very good references for Johnson Controls. Another project where we've experienced a shortfall was the City of Little Rock. 15 years ago, we did 2 15-year projects with the City of Little Rock. Bruce Moore, the city manager, is the reference. We did one with Public Works, where we retrofitted all of the traffic signals, the traffic lights from incandescent to LED. Well, and I don't understand how this happened, but what we failed to uncover in our due diligence, and what the City of Little Rock Public Works, what we failed to uncover in our due diligence was that the City of Little Rock Public Works, there's not an electric meter at every intersection in town. They pay the Entergy a flat fee tariff for every traffic signal they hang. So we took their traffic signal kilowatt consumption from this to this, and Entergy said thank you and did not change the tariff structure. So for the last 15 years, we have taken the City of Little Rock Public Works a $50,000 to $60,000 shortfall check. That was a $500,000 accounting error. It cost some man his job. But it wasn't the city's prerogative, it was ours. We sued Entergy twice, it was our fault. I took John Honeywell, the Public Works Director, a catfish lunch and a $55,000 shortfall check in April for year 15 of 15. They're also a great reference. The other project we did with the City of Little Rock sanitation, it's at the City of Little Rock landfill. It's a whole complex thing. We're guaranteeing how we extract the methane gas. That's a great reference. We don't pay a shortfall there. We're doing this, we're implementing a project now at Jefferson County. We've done projects at the Arkansas State University Jonesboro campus, Newport campus, BB campus, Searcy campus, Mark Tree campus, Mid-South campus, all to great success. We did 7 phases at Little Rock School District. They are not an active project because all of those projects are complete. We're doing this all over Arkansas, but I also live in Arkansas. If I come up here to Washington County and blow this up, the first time I try to go to Benton County or Craighead County or any other county, y'all are going to run down there, or the judge at the Association of Counties is going to say, don't do business with Johnson Controls, because they're corrupt, which is one of the reasons there are very few ESCOs that do work in Arkansas that live in Arkansas. Mr. Steele referenced that there are 3 ESCOs approved to do work in Arkansas. There are 14 approved ESCOs that do work in Arkansas. There are only 3 of us that live here because we have to work and live and sleep where we sell. So I'm less inclined to come in here and do what I call crash and dash. Anyways, Mr. Dunk made a reference about savings above the M&V. I'll need to go back and check that language, and maybe we can have a discussion about that. This is not a shared savings agreement. We do not keep shared savings. You retain excess savings. We do not keep savings above how the project performs. For example, in October, we delivered the first-year M&V report to South Arkansas Community College, which is the community college in El Dorado, and their project overperformed $64,000. So we met our guarantee, and it overperformed $64,000. They keep that. It's not ours to keep. We're paid just like a general contractor. I get my money when we implement the job in a negotiated contract. It's already been done. It's in the contract, and you keep the savings. We don't keep savings. That's a shared savings agreement. We don't do those because they're very messy, and they're very difficult to account for. The question about, yes, ma'am.
Mike?
Maintenance, how long do you come in? Do you come in for the full 20 years and do the evaluation of the utilities to determine whether we have saved or overspent?
Yes, ma'am, on a quarterly basis.
You do it on a quarterly basis?
On some instances, it's monthly. It depends on the FIM. So it depends on the FIM. If you remember back when I was here last time, I talked about our NAESCO accreditation and the level of transparency required for us to maintain those levels of accreditation from the National Association of Energy Service Companies. One of those is M&V, how we do M&V. Because Mr. Dunk very appropriately mentioned, how are you going to let them M&V their own job? How's that not the fox in the hen house? Well, that's a part of that, the fact that you're dealing with the highest level accredited ESCO that exists in the state. We do the M&V, there's 4 published conditions. Condition A, Schedule A, B, C, or D. And it's a part of what Dwight and his team got into, and they told us what each one should be. Condition A, for example, is a one-time pre- and post-measurement. We do that for lighting and plumbing. So if I come in here and I retrofit this light fixture, I'm going to measure it pre-performance, because I know it's, not this one, but I know it's a 2x4 fluorescent fixture that's burning 4 32-watt fluorescent light bulbs. I know what you're paying SWEPCO for a kilowatt hour, and I know, based off the data loggers that we deployed in the building, how many hours a week over 3.5 weeks these rooms burn electricity, burn lights. So I can calculate that very easily. And I know that the Hubble or Acuity fixture that I'm going to put up there only burns 9 or 14 kilowatt hour. So to answer your question, the M&V, if it's condition A, we just measure it before and after, because the only way you're going to manipulate how that light fixture consumes electricity is if you turn it off.
I would think that you would use the utility bills for the total kilowatt hours or the total number of gallons of water.
Yes, ma'am.
Or
We did.
cubic feet of gas that's used.
We
As
analyzed
your M&V.
We analyzed 24 months of gas, water, and light that was weather normalized. So it was normalized for the variances in an extremely cool winter or warm winter or cool summer.
Okay, so you come in and you do those measurements quarterly. Yes.
And
you do that for the entire lifetime of the project?
For the 20
over
years.
20 years?
Yes, ma'am. And the cash
All
flow
right, thank
pays
you.
for that. That was Mr. Dunk's comment about the $400,000. You are at any time eligible to cancel the M&V services. You're not bound to pay that for 20 years. Frankly, a lot of people don't. After about 3 or 5 years, they say, hey, I'm going to take that 20 or 30 or 40,000, whatever it is, 20, 30, $40,000 a year, and I'm going to keep it and make the cash flow that much more positive. So if you're entitled, but the guarantee goes with the M&V. The M&V services are our engineers that are coming in and doing the audits. They're watching the utility bills. They're studying the energy management control system to make sure that it is tracking along the baseline that the administration agreed to.
So what is that fee per quarter?
It's just annually. I'd have to go back and look at the report. I'm sorry, I don't have that off the top of my head.
I mean, I would think that would be in the contract, and we.
It is. You
wouldn't-
don't pay for that. It's paid for
We
in the
don't
cash
pay
flow.
for it.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Let me clarify that. You pay for it, but I'm telling you that the cash flow supports it. That the savings, that was the whole idea. The savings has to support all of the ancillary services. That's how the law reads. So essentially, after you pay me and we're gone, and construction's over, and you're in the 20-year M&V, which happens after 10 months of construction, which I'll speak to in a moment, the county has two contracts. You have the contract with the bank, where you service the note annually, and then you have a smaller contract with Johnson Controls for the M&V services. But my commitment, the way the legislation reads, is that the cash flow savings will produce the savings in the bank for you to write that check. Just instead of paying SWEPCO and CenterPoint and the water company, you instead of paying them $100 a month, every month you're only going to pay them $60 a month. That delta every month is what's in the bank to pay that service.
And what money do we use to pay the note?
The savings. Yeah. The savings, I'm guaranteeing the utility savings, and Dwight and the administration agreed that the annual O&M savings and capital cost avoidance were reasonable. As a matter of fact, I asked Dwight several times, and the last question I said to him, correct, did he leave? I said, Dwight, are you comfortable testifying in front of the Quorum Court that your O&M savings are real? That if we replace all this infrastructure, that these savings, that you're not, instead of paying MCC and paying R&E Supply and Fastenal and Johnstone, all the supply houses, paying Train and Carrier, are you confident that those savings, you can stand up to public scrutiny and testimony? He said, without hesitation. So that's where those numbers come from. But I'm guaranteeing the utility savings. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Your responsibility, his comment about improper maintenance, we talked about that last time. Dwight and his team have to do basic industry-accepted preventative maintenance. They've got to wash the coils once a year and change the filters every quarter. He's got to maintain the energy management control system in a way that he would to keep it functional. If I come in here in year 3 and we have a shortfall, and I get on the roof of the juvenile detention center, and all 14 of those pieces of HVAC equipment the filters are clogged full of dirt and cottonseed and any mud or pollen because they've not been cleaned. At that point, we have a conversation with Dwight saying, hey man, you're not maintaining this equipment so it will perform at the rating the manufacturer it to perform. That's the only out. I assure you, if we could have found an out to keep from paying City of Little Rock, $750,000 the last 15 years, we would have. But that's not good business, and you'll certainly be sure to tell your friends in the other quorum courts if that's how we do business. You are responsible, Dwight and his team, they are responsible for basic preventative maintenance. But I would hope that as administrators, you would be encouraging Dwight to be doing that anyways, because that is basic industry-accepted preventative maintenance, that he's taking care of the assets in a way that anybody else would. The only other thing I have on here, and I hope somebody else grabbed another note if I've not covered your questions, is the 1-year-long warranty. That is correct. You have the builder's warranty from us, just like if I was Baldwin & Shell or CDI or any other general contractor. We're going to guarantee for a year our workmanship and constructability. All of the other infrastructure is warranted from the manufacturer, so the lighting will have a 10-year warranty. The HVAC has a 5-year compressor warranty. Some of it, depending on the equipment, may have a 10-year warranty. If you get in there, if this light fixture, if Dwight and his team say, hey, Alex, this light fixture continues to burn out prematurely, and I'm clearly not reaching my 70 to 100,000 hours of burn rating, and we pull the fixture down, it was clearly installed wrong or wired backwards or done poorly, that's on me. If the fixture just failed prematurely, which that's the nature of manufacturing, the warranty is then with the manufacturer. For the Hubble or Acuity or Philips, or if it's HVAC, it's York or Carrier, Train, or whatever. The extended warranty, the only extended warranty the solar panels that we have designed, because Johnson Controls designs the solar array. We don't install it, we sub that out. So I would love for Mr. Steele to provide us a bid for material or installation, because as of close of business today, we have not issued a contract to any solar provider for material or implementation. But our solar team, Johnson Controls Solar Solutions, designs the projects to about 80%. And then once we select our solar installer, we let them finish it and own it. The solar panels that we require are installed, they will have a 25-year generation guarantee. So the panels will be guaranteed by the manufacturer to generate electricity for a minimum of 25 years. What other questions do you have? Or what did I miss?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There was a question, all of his questions are on the paper he gave to us. His question was, sorry, I can't read. Gotta put it back. Why did JCI not try and team up with an electrical contractor in Northwest Arkansas?
Right.
And the electrician they stated to be teamed up with is out of North Little Rock, so why spend money for out-of-town expenses when there are qualified companies here in NWA?
That's right. So that depends on the FIM. For HVAC, we bid 4 contractors, 2 of which are in Springdale. MCC, Comfort Systems, Middleton, which is in Little Rock, and RGB, which comes out of Jonesboro. We bid those contractors because we had experience with them. At the end of the day, I am holding the bag. This is not a design-build job where you're writing a contract and issuing a purchase order and then hoping Mr. Lester and Mr. Gonzalez hold the contractor to the letter of the scope. I am holding the bag. So ultimately, at the end of the day, it is my prerogative to select providers that I know will install equipment and services that will perform to the liability and risk that our firm will hold for 20 years. But this is not our first rodeo. So we bid those firms. So we had 4 contractors that bid the HVAC. They all bid identical scope. It was approved by the administration before it was released. We let them walk the site. All of that was done. The lighting is a little different. We work very diligently to keep the money in Arkansas, so we prefer Arkansas-based firms. The average run-of-the-mill electrical contractor, now this is a discriminatory blanket statement, but in our experience, the average run-of-the-mill electrical contractor is not staffed or equipped to install 8,000 to 9,000 light fixtures, mostly at night, in a few weeks. So we're a little more picky about who we go to business with in terms of installing the lighting, because the most visible part of the project to you will be the lighting. And they're mostly going to be working at night. So it's just not something we traditionally open up to everybody. Also because lighting is driving some of the highest amount of savings. It's the lowest hanging fruit. We're, again, a little more discriminatory into who we allow to install our product where the risk will be assigned to our firm. IPS, again, that works very much the same way. So Johnson Controls Lighting Solutions, JCLS, designs the project, and we have local contractors bid them and price them. We rack and stack all of our pricing. So when all the HVAC pricing came in, when the controls pricing came in, when the lighting pricing came in, we put it in a Excel spreadsheet, a running Excel spreadsheet we have, and we know that a cost per square foot, cost per ton, price per point, or price per gallon, that they are in line. So, and in fact, we did that. We beat MCC up pretty hard because we were not happy with where their pricing came in per ton compared to our other projects in the region. And so we make sure that it's in line. I will, for my edification, the fire alarm, we're putting in a Honeywell system with a competitor called Arcom. Dwight, that was Dwight's prerogative. He interviewed Arcom. He's very, very comfortable with the product and the service. I had him look at our product. I brought in our team from Simplex Grinnell and gave him the pitch because I said, hey, why not? What about the Johnson product? He wasn't interested. So he looked at the primary competitor to Honeywell, which is Simplex Grinnell, and he wasn't interested. He was pleased not only with the product, but more importantly, the service. And I'm comfortable that he would tell you the exact same thing if he was in here. That's not my prerogative. When it comes to, hey, these are the people I want you to use, that's, as long as we're comfortable that they will maintain the guarantee and install a quality product. We specifically asked these guys, who is allowed in the county, who is not allowed in the county, and they gave us a list. We had a list of vendors that they wanted us to bid, and we got a couple of firms that were not allowed to participate. So that's really more on them.
I'd just kind of like to know where we are protocol-wise. Are we having all of our discussion on the ordinance that we haven't read yet right now, and we're not going to do it later, or how are we handling this?
We'll still have to have public comment and discussion. I mean, you can do it all now, and there may not be any, I'm sorry. From the person that usually tells people to turn their mics on, I apologize. You've still got to have your public comment before you vote, and there's still discussion. Whether there's discussion still to be had is up to all of you sitting here, but procedurally, we still have to follow that protocol.
So if I decide to wait till then, we will still do it then?
That's correct. We still have,
Okay.
we'll have public comment, we'll have discussion, and then public comment, and then a roll call vote like we always
It's
do.
just that this is a little bit unusual. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First thing I'd like to say is, Mr. Ray, you do a really professional job.
Thank you.
I'm impressed. And Mr. Dunk, thank you. You did a lot of digging and a lot of technical stuff that I wouldn't have been smart enough to do. And I thank you for it. You did a great job. I guess I've got a number of questions about this thing, and I talked to Mr. Ray about it before the meeting. And, I know there's 80 pages of contract here in great detail, and I told him that I felt like the primary thing I found in there is all kinds of protective comments for Johnson. And I understand that. You guys wrote the contract, and you know things to look out for. The first thing I think about is remodeling a home, doing air conditioning. I did mine recently and ran into all kinds of things with ductwork and electrical and so forth. And I guess when you start replacing air conditioning, heating and air units, there seems to be exclusions in there relative to ductwork and all that kind of stuff and other fittings. Would you address that situation?
Yes, sir. So this project is by design and a little bit of by Dwight's direction, mostly with one exception, like-for-like replacement. So we're not modifying the existing infrastructure, we're just upgrading it as it is. So if it's a 10-ton split system, we're going to put back a 10-ton split system. If it's a 40-ton rooftop unit, we're going to put back a 40-ton rooftop unit. Now, if you get into the contract, a lot of the ancillary equipment is upgraded. Everything gets a new gas regulator, everything gets a new electrical disconnect, everything gets new condensate. If it requires new refrigerant lines, it has to be functional. So I'm not just going to come in here and rip a piece of equipment off and put something back and say, well, it's like for like, and then it not function, because then we start to get into the guarantee of delivery. The exception is this courthouse, and we talked about this. The water source heat pumps that are above the ceiling, and there are 100 in the building, and we're replacing what's left, which is, I want to say, 64, the ones that Dwight has not gotten to yet. A lot of them are very difficult to service. MCC, that was there, they brought that brainchild to the scope. They said, hey, we're going to carry money in our price, which that competitively bid price, to change how the install is on a lot of equipment, move ductwork, rerun electrical, increase the size of the transitions to make them easier to access, easier to service in the long run.
So that is included in your prices?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But the big thing is it's like for like. I mean, so we don't want to get into the business of, let me give you an example. We were asked to evaluate the Mitsubishi VRF system at the old historic courthouse. I'm not sure if you're aware, but it has been a nightmare for Dwight. In last year's O&M budget, he spent $100,000 on that piece of equipment. $100,000 with MCC trying to make that equipment work. We took a long, hard look at trying to get in front of that, and our risk governance team said, as soon as we step in front of that, that's ours. We're going to own it, and we're confident that the only way to fix it is to rip it out and put it back in. And MCC is making a very valiant effort, and I think they're just about to get it squared away. But the goal was not to correct engineering deficiencies or to redesign spaces. It's simply to replace the identified infrastructure, the infrastructure that was selected by the team, to upgrade it and move on.
Okay, so any change in cubic feet per minute, that kind of thing will not have to be modified?
It's marginal. But I assure you, Justice Bowman, all of that was engineered.
Okay.
Because it affects the performance. You know, if I hang a new split system and it starts to rain in here because we didn't have the proper CFM calculated or the proper heat load, and I'm not controlling humidity, and I've not done my job.
All right, on the solar field, I don't think you guys do any of the sub work on the infrastructure for the solar panels.
On the install.
Okay, what's involved? I know there's a lot of up ground, down ground down there, wet areas and dry areas and so forth.
Yes, sir.
What's going to be involved in the solar panel installation and the work that the county is going to have to do to prepare the surface for the solar panels?
That's on us. There'll be no work for the county to do. I mean, it will be geo-tested. It's already been preliminarily, but the feasibility and the ability for that ground to manage that weight load and wind load, it'll be tested. And if it's not right, we'll have to punt.
So you go ahead and do all the foundation work,
Yes,
all the
sir.
groundwork, and all
Yes,
that
sir.
kind of stuff?
And put the chain link fence up.
All right. Now, are these solar panels the type that follow the sun, or are these fixed?
No, so these are fixed access.
Okay, how high off the ground are they?
Ooh, that's highly technical. I want to say at the bottom of the panel, they're going to be 4 feet off the ground. I mean, it's going to be the minimum required serviceability.
Is that like the farm up here in Springdale? You're familiar with the one up there, the utility zone out on 412?
Vaguely.
Okay, well, I think that's about what the height is out there.
Yeah,
But I wonder if it's going to be similar to that field.
I couldn't say.
Okay.
I can get back to you on that.
What about additional, if we decide to go ahead and this looks good to us, we want to add solar panels in that area, what's the possibility of addition there? Is there going to be room for additional there?
There is room for one more row, yes, sir. We left quite a bit of room by design between the back row and the fence that's back there that prohibits people from getting onto the byway.
Well, what about
Bypass.
maintenance of weed control and that kind of thing? I think that might be a real issue in a field like this.
You need to mow around it. Dwight's team will need to mow around it.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess the other thing, with all the numbers scattered throughout 80 pages there, I wasn't as smart as Mr. Dunk to go through there and put that all together. I would really like a spreadsheet showing what all our outlays are,
Yes,
our
sir.
time factor and so forth, so we can look at that and get a real clear picture of exactly what our obligations are.
Yes, sir.
We don't have a great deal of excess in our budget. Our reserves are rather limited. So I don't want to see us get in a situation here that we're going to be faced with big surprises that we don't have an answer to.
Yes, sir. That's
So-
right. So yes, all of that information is available. Dwight has that in one form or another, but we can absolutely
Okay.
publish that. So Justice Bowman, that gets back to something that I've had some conversations with you all afterwards in the hallways and whatnot, especially after our last meeting, and all of you fairly universally expressed a tremendous amount of confidence in Dwight and his competency and his ability to do his job. And not all of you may agree, but I got a lot of that. So Dwight and I spent 2.5 hours going through this 80-page contract. I sat in his office for 2.5 hours and literally, I've never done that before. Normally it's quite a bit more summarily, but we went through every line before he emailed the judge and Mr. Attorney Lester and said, hey, everything we negotiated is in here and I recommend signing it. And I've yet to have, in my 3.5 years and 10 contracts I've done the last 3.5 years, we've never gone to that level of detail. So I assure you, we're not going to sneak anything over on him.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm very proud of him. I think he does a great job. I went down last week and spent some time with him myself. And I know he's very confident about what we're doing. But I guess I'm just a picky old guy that likes to have a lot of details about money outlay.
I appreciate that.
Because we don't have a lot of it excess laying around.
We'll give you whatever you want to see.
Okay.
It's yours anyways.
Okay. I'm asking for the spreadsheet.
Okay.
And what annual outlays are. And I think that'll help us to really have a clear picture of exactly what we're committing to. Thank you.
Do we want to go ahead and introduce the ordinance or keep this going? Do we want to go ahead and introduce the ordinance and then continue on with the conversation after that? Okay. So we only have one ordinance tonight, is the one in front of you. J.P. Jenkins, will you go ahead and introduce it?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Attorney Lester, will you please read this ordinance by title only?
An ordinance providing for the execution and delivery of an equipment lease purchase agreement between Washington County, Arkansas and Sterling National Bank, providing for the payment of lease payments pursuant to such agreement, providing for the execution and delivery of an escrow agreement among Washington County, Arkansas, Sterling National Bank as lessor, and Sterling National Bank as escrow agent, ratifying the execution and delivery of a performance contract dated as of April 23, 2019, between Washington County, Arkansas and Johnson Controls Incorporated, prescribing other matters relating thereto, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve in a second.
I make a motion that we approve item 5.1 as read.
All in favor? Oh. Nope, nope. Discussion by the quorum court.
Thank you, Matt.
Mr. Pond was, go ahead, JP Pond.
Yes, I was wanting to make sure, or clarify, make sure I heard that right. In this agreement, you're totally replacing the AC unit at the historical courthouse. Is that correct?
No, sir, we're not.
That you're not?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the only buildings we did develop, but the county said, no, don't do it.
And at this time, I'd like to ask county staff to make note that I'd be interested in the next meeting we have, how much monies do we think the county might receive in grants for the purchase and installation of this new equipment we're talking about putting in? There should be some environmental or some government grants to assist us in this sort of thing. Thank you.
JP Madison?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious to find out if there are other counties in Arkansas that are doing similar work that you are not the contractor.
Yes, ma'am, there are two. Sebastian County used an out-of-state firm called McKinstry, and Pulaski County used a firm out of Little Rock called Integrity Energy Partners, which was also, they were also interviewed for this project. And that was one thing I missed. Mr. Steele said, was anybody else interviewed? There were 3 firms interviewed, and we were the successful firm that was selected. So Pulaski and Sebastian.
How far along are they in their work?
Pulaski is finished. So if you remember, I told you that this is relatively new to county government because it's only been effective since 2015. Pulaski was the first in 2015. They're finished. I believe they're entertaining a second phase now to put solar at the Pulaski County Detention Center. Sebastian County, they should be probably finished with implementation by now. I'm not really sure about that one. And then, yeah, yes, ma'am.
So which county facilities are excluded from this? I mean, I think
It's
the library
really,
building, which is kind of dinky.
Yes,
is not on
ma'am,
your list.
and we're not doing anything at the Adult Detention Center in the Sheriff's Office, so that complex is excluded, and we're doing almost no work at the VA. Just a little bit. We're doing the controls.
You mean the building that near the old Washington Regional?
Yes,
at
ma'am.
VA?
Yes, ma'am, because y'all are in some type of,
Washington Regional still, or UAMS still has the lease on it.
right, so, if we lowered their utility bills, they'd be appreciative.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to, Mr. Gonzalez has actually only been the Buildings and Grounds Supervisor for a little over 2 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And the previous Building and Grounds Supervisor did swap out a lot of these fluorescent tubes for LEDs.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to make sure you knew that some of them were already LEDs. Are you going to be changing those fixtures as well?
No, ma'am. We're only changing 2,300 fixtures. There are about 1,000 that are already up. We had like 3,700 that we had audited, and we're only replacing 23.
That are still the old tubes and ballast?
Yes, ma'am. So we're not going to mess with these lights. There's nothing wrong with them.
Okay, well, you said the change we'd noticed the most was the lights, and I thought, what could change?
Right. Well, I mean, they're the most visible
Okay,
to the constituency, to you all. You see the lighting in the buildings.
okay. And maybe you or our county attorney could explain to me, I've lost track of this, what is the urgency requiring us to enact, to do this pronto?
So the way this works is we entered into this contract with Johnson Controls. As you all are aware, the county judge has to enter into all contracts for the county. So the contract was entered, and it was contingent upon you passing an ordinance providing and for the funding, because only you as the legislative body can do that. So to do this, we had to put bids out. Johnson Controls put bids out to banks to finance this project, and those bids came back in right before Quorum Court last week. I was hoping we could just take care of it then. Bond counsel, which is why we hired those guys, because they are really smart, was like, no, we got to have 10-day notice. And so, to be real honest with you, we got a rate back from a bank that was substantially lower than what we had even thought was possible. But they only guarantee that for 30 days. We had bond counsel, having worked with this particular bank before, contacted them and said, hey, this is a problem because there's no way legally we can do this in 30 days. We have to do a 10-day notice of the hearing on this particular ordinance. Then there's a 30-day period before we can close. And so they agreed to extend that out so that if we had this meeting today and passed this ordinance today, our 30 days will end, our rate is still good, we can close on the loan. It's probably $250,000 to $300,000 difference in doing that. So
That's why there's an emergency clause.
That's why there's an emergency clause. That's why we're doing this now, correct?
Okay, thank you.
And if I may speak to that, so just to put a little credence to that, Sterling, there were 26 banks that received an RFP. I heard somebody asked me about RVest. Very few retail banks are interested in holding a note at very low interest for 20 years. So there are very few retail banks that participate in this. It's mostly big banks or banks that do this infrastructure lending. We send out an RFP to 26 banks, one of which is First Security, Cruz & Associates, First Security Bank, and then Merrill Lynch, SunTrust, UBS, on and on. The bank that was the successful bidder, and we didn't select them, we just administered the RFP process, the county selected them, is offering Washington County $8 million for 20 years fixed at 3.17. Henderson State University, for example, they got their RFP back Friday, and their rate was 3.65 from Cruz & Associates, First Security Bank. So I think Sterling was leading the charge to the floor, and that's we've not seen anything below 3.3 in about 3 years.
J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess J.P. Madison asked the same question I had about what the emergency was here. I guess we don't have the numbers back on the spreadsheet. 80 pages of contract with all the details is a very confusing issue to deal with. I would like to see that cockeyed spreadsheet before we vote this thing through. Without we see those numbers down, so we know exactly where we're going and what our outlay is going to be. I think Mr. Ray has done a fantastic job with this. The judge is totally behind it. Dwight's totally behind it. I think Mr. Lester's totally behind it. I guess I just still have questions about exactly what our outlay will be. $8.3 million is a lot of money to commit to. So, our budget has been pinched and pinched and pinched, and I don't want to see us commit to something here that's going to embarrass us. So what's our options here to deal with this and get the final information back about the spreadsheet before we approve this?
J.P. Pond.
Concerning because the interest rates were brought up, was there any discussion about or any numbers run on and what kind of interest rates could you get had this been paid off on a 10-year loan instead of 20? Did y'all look at anything like that?
So it's modeled on the cash flow, and so we provide utility savings. So utility savings are about, the first year they're $296,000, and then there's $50,000 in operation savings and $100,000 in the capital avoidance. So that equals a number. That number is what you can leverage for as long or as short as you want. So if you say, hey, I'm only going to do a 10-year job, Well, that's going to be you can fund about $4 million worth of scope. 15 years, you can fund about $6 million worth of scope. So it was the administration's election that we want to do all this scope so we don't have to keep asking the Quorum Court for cash. So let's do it for 20 years, which is the norm. I don't know any, I can only think of one institution that did a 15-year job. But yes, sir, it was considered.
Well, I did consult with an engineer, a third party that lives outside this county that's dealt in this sort of thing many times. With Swepco and with Walmart. His biggest concern was this taking 20 years to pay off. It was a red flag to him.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you.
So yes, sir, that's the norm. The law allows that. So you can't do a 25-year deal. You can't do a 22-year deal. The statute says no more than 20 years.
But you could do a 10-year if we could pay it.
Well, you can pay it. That was the county's decision. Those guys, the administration, they negotiated that.
Thank you.
J.P. Dinkins.
A couple of questions that are probably just clarifying what you've already kind of went over. One is the length of this implementation term. Did you mention 10 months? Is that what you were planning on?
That is correct. Yes, sir. The construction term is designed at 10 months.
Does that include the solar array?
Oh, yes.
So within 10 months, that's the plan. This will all be
To be off the job in 10 months. Yes, sir.
Gotcha. And that's beneficial for you guys to get in here and get the job done, I'm assuming. You don't want to hang around here for a year and a half.
We don't want to hang around here for you. Well, we do. We do want to hang around here for a year and a half. Yes, sir. And for the project to generate savings, I didn't say this, but these guys on the fifth floor have heard it enough that they're probably sick of it. The idea is to create value. If this project does not create value for the stakeholders of Washington County, we have not done anybody any service. And so if I have this developed at a 10-month construction project, but we diddle around, it takes us 14 months to install it, the savings are going to be off, y'all are going to be upset, the administration's going to be upset, and it doesn't serve us to extend ourselves out that way. So we've become very proficient, and truthfully, there's some fluff in the 10 months. It'll probably be down in 8. This is what we do every day.
Also, you're saying when the administration, you're working with them to go through the due diligence on all this,
Yes.
You're saying that you were taken to lengths that maybe you haven't done in other projects before, down to detail level, right? Is that what
Yes,
you were
sir.
saying to us?
We've been developing this since November, and the county has been considering it since December of 2017. By no means would I say this was rushed. We've been working at this since December of 2017, and we've been developing this job since November. I have not worked with any institution of higher education, K-12, or local government, city or county, that has given this project as much scrutiny as Dwight and the judge and Mr. Lester have. And that is not a joke. I'm happy to refer you to my Outlook calendar as Exhibit A. There are hours and hours poured through this.
Right. And that's where my thought process is going, is there are owners in this type of situation, and at some point we have to trust the ownership of this project, and I think that lies with the judge and Dwight Gonzalez. So, thank you, sir, very much for your time tonight.
Yeah, J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Point of clarification, I am in favor of passing this ordinance tonight, and I'm sure you've provided spreadsheets for Dwight and the judge and our county attorney, and have gone through it extensively.
Yes, ma'am.
And they've seen the numbers. And the information that you provided for us on the cost savings is pretty much, it was a PowerPoint presentation, not exactly an Excel spreadsheet of what it was, but you did give us some financial information
Yes, ma'am.
on the cost savings of this project.
That is correct.
Point number 2, I had a conversation with Mr. Gonzalez that passing this ordinance, we will be able to start saving money, but if we delay this, it's going to cost us money, because right now his team is out having to deal with different AC units here and there and here and there, and they're not being very efficient with their labor because they're having to put out wildfires every day.
Yes, ma'am. And I'll give you a case in point of that, pardon the interruption. We were going to replace 3 pieces of HVAC equipment at the VA that Dwight wanted to replace. But as this has been going on, they had catastrophic failure, and this is the value. This is the value. They've had catastrophic failure, and Dwight could not wait any longer, and y'all paid cash to repair those units that would have been covered in this budget-neutral procurement model. And so to keep from amending the contract, we're going to horse trade. There are dollars in the contract for those pieces of equipment, and he's going to get it somewhere else. But yes, ma'am, that will probably continue every week of the summer.
Okay, so point number 2 is there isn't a penalty for paying this off early.
No.
And that is one thing that is on their plan, their agenda, is to pay this off as soon as possible. So they are already aggressively looking at that and retiring this loan.
Yes, ma'am.
And there's not going to be a penalty for paying it off early either. And I know that Mr. Gonzalez said that. I'm in favor of this, and I'd like to call the question and vote on it. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Public comments.
Can she have a few moments? We went over 36 minutes.
First off,
Just a second.
we've moved on to the ordinance part where the question's been called, which is to end debate. Now, if we end, so there's a motion on the, sorry, I shouldn't. There's a motion on the floor to end debate, and there's a second. If it passes, the debate will end. We will still allow public comment because we still have to do that, and then we'll, as soon as public comment is over, a vote will be taken. So the motion on the floor is to end debate and call the question. There's a second, so you'll need to take a vote on that,
Just
a voice vote.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
The question's called, debate is ended, and now we'll move to public comment.
So any public comments?
But there will be no debate on the public comment because the debate has closed, just point of clarification.
And we'll have 12 minutes, so state your name and where you live.
Okay, I'm Jennifer Steele. I live at 2396 Wildcat Creek Boulevard. I am the Regional Director of Sales and Marketing for Simple Solar. I have been working with the county for about 18 months, reviewing the same utility bills and for all facilities. I came to Dwight two years ago and we started working through this process. Back up a little bit, before I went into the solar business in Nashville, Tennessee, I was part of the team responsible for developing the performance contract solution for Schneider Electric. And in all fairness, the comment that was made by Mr. Steele about ESCOs, we're talking apples to apples. So in my opinion, Johnson Controls, Siemens, and Schneider, those are the big giants, so they have a level playing field. So I'm not partial to any one performance contractor over another. However, I do have a lot of knowledge and background about how they work, and I just want to make sure that the Quorum Court understands that the performance contract is set up in a way that is typically oversized, more than what the county really needs, in order to be able to guarantee the production. And I just want to make sure that we're considering that we're solving a tactical problem, or that we're not solving a tactical problem, but rather coming up with a strategy. So with the big data and Internet of Things being the trend for these days, I think that the ability to bring analytics and controls and monitoring and apps and things like that to better manage the energy and to be able to make predictive analysis about things like the repair and maintenance costs that might be escalated, having to run out and work on an emergency failure or something like that. If we look at a package that also includes the apps and things like that to be able to monitor the energy consumption, I think that might be something that would be beneficial in saving those repair costs going forward. I did put together some plans based on the energy replacement needs through solar
for the facilities that were discussed in these slides that were just shown. What I did see was that the solar array was quoted at 2,011 kilowatts, or a 2 megawatt system. My actual system size comes up to 1,300.74. And that would give us 1,692,506 production kilowatt hours. The cost for that is $2,406,369 out of pocket.
So the 3 minutes are up?
Okay, I thought you said 12.
Yeah, altogether.
Okay.
Suspend the rules and extend her time to speak.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Go ahead.
Okay, so when we're looking at a 20-year performance contract, I think it's also important to note that the payback period for an out-of-pocket purchase of a solar system of this size at the amount of $2,406,369, the payback in years across, this would cover the roads and environmental affairs office building, planning, where Dwight's office is. That would be 100% of the utility costs going to solar. So you wouldn't have any power bills on, or any consumption on the grid at that point. The roads and bridges building, that's 99% solar, 1% from the grid. The animal shelter is 100% solar. The courthouse, this building, and the parking, those were how Dwight had that listed in the spreadsheet. That's 78% achieved through solar. The judicial annex, 30% in solar, and the health department is 30% in solar. The payback in number of years is 13.82 years. So if you're able to pay $2.4 million and some change and get a 13.82 year payback, as opposed to a performance contract that has all of these different requirements and 20 years on the term, we're delivering pretty much the same amount of savings per year, which is $117,000 a year. The savings over the lifetime of the system, which is 30 to 40 years for the lifetime. Our warranties are 25 years. The savings in the system lifetime would be $6,399,482. The year one ROI is 5%, and the internal rate of return is 8%. So I wanted to bring all of those details into light so that you can make an educated decision about an out-of-pocket cost versus a performance contract. And if we move forward with performance contractors, perhaps look at the other equal providers to Johnson Controls. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Any other public comments?
Roll call, right?
Okay, Ms. Patty, roll call.
It's on the motion to approve the ordinance that was read. Okay, just making sure.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
No.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
No.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
No.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Fails? Okay, motion fails. Fails.
Next item, we're adjourned.
Okay.
Could we sever it from the emergency clause and pass it?
It doesn't matter, because what happens is we lose the locked-in rate, so the rate's going to automatically go up. So it doesn't matter. We can do it again when we have more people here or whatever we have to. But the fact of the matter is, if it didn't pass tonight, that 3.17 rate's gone, and they have every right to increase their rate. Once they see all the other rates, that rate will go up. And when we bid it, it will not, most likely, it will not be that low.
So it got 9 votes, it just needs 1 more, right?
That's correct.
I would plead with someone who voted no to save the county this money, because if we go through 3 readings, this is going to become a county ordinance, because it has 9 votes. And all you're doing by voting no tonight is costing us hundreds of thousands of dollars. So someone needs to stand up that voted no and move to reconsider and let us pass this on. Because the only consequence is delaying it and costing us money, which is ridiculous.
Can there be a discussion?
Yeah.
JP Bowman?
What about this spreadsheet? How soon can we have this spreadsheet?
There was a comment made, I believe, just for a point of clarification for you about the solar and the parking lot, and I'm guessing that would, you were talking about the parking lot out here, Ms. Steele, is that right? Correct. Would we just be putting those solar panels on the spots, and so we wouldn't have parking on the courthouse anymore? Or would the county be required to build something to hold those?
In my discussions and the planning with Dwight over the last year, and this was prior to my learning of.
You get what I'm saying? Eva, you get my point.
I just learned
Is
of
what she's
the
saying is if we build
involvement with Johnson
which we're not gonna
Controls
do.
in March, and I have had discussions with Alex Ray, so he's very well aware of our capabilities. In my previous dealings with Dwight over the last year, the plans were to build a parking structure or a covered parking over this parking lot so that we could get as much solar production for this location.
No, I know.
Yes. JP Madison?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to ask the county attorney to please explain to us the procedure for having a revote on this. Is it someone from the prevailing side that needs to move, and who would that be the prevailing side, since the motion had a majority?
Right, somebody that can change their vote would have to make a motion to reconsider. And then if there's a second and it passes, then the motion can be reconsidered. So that would be somebody that voted no.
JP Bowman?
I am still at a loss here of why we're being held captive about this interest rate. Tell me again, explain to me again what the situation is on how this all came about.
When you go to a bank and you get a loan amount, they give you an interest rate. Those interest rates are not, they're not durable forever. They have a date at which they expire. It's like any offer that you make on the purchase of anything. There's an offer and there's an expiration date. And so in this particular circumstance, what happened is the banks all offered their rates, and they all offered their rates good for 30 days. Because we couldn't do that legally, couldn't get this passed that soon, we had to ask the bank that we were wanting to use, the one that had the lowest rate, to extend that offer out to give us time to publish our 10-day notice, which we did immediately, to wait our 10 days to have this meeting today. If we don't pass this ordinance today, then that rate will expire before we have a chance to pass the ordinance, and it's gone. So when we go back, we have to put bids back out for the banks for interest rates again. And so there's no guarantee that you're going to have the same interest rate. I think, like Mr. Ray said, it could be quite a bit more. But that's the issue on the interest rate, because it's not out there forever. They've given us an extension more than what they said they would, just so that we could have this meeting.
And what's the cost? $300,000?
It's about $250,000 to $350,000.
JP Ecke?
That was my point of clarification. I do believe that it was mentioned if we pass this tonight, the savings to the county will be $250,000 to $350,000 because of this interest rate. Thank you.
JP Jenkins?
Can we have any more discussion, or are we waiting just to?
Yeah.
I mean, technically, the debate on this issue is closed, unless somebody moves to suspend the rules to continue the debate. I guess you could reopen it but there's got to have a supermajority to do so.
JP Madison.
So is today the actual drop dead 30th day, or would it be possible to have a special meeting tomorrow and a special meeting Thursday? I know that costs money, but it's less than $300,000.
No,
I mean,
I think that in order to publish it and get it done today, it has to be published tomorrow.
Okay.
In order to get the 30 days to give us the time to close.
So if this isn't passed tonight, we have to wait till the next quorum court meeting?
Well, if it's not passed tonight, this ordinance doesn't apply. So we scrap this ordinance because the terms change, and the bank most likely is not going to honor this for 2 more months, and so we probably have to scratch the ordinance and start all over.
Ms. Shawness. JP Jenkins.
So could you clarify procedurally, does that mean that if we have to write a new ordinance due to a new interest rate, we'll be back to first reading? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And more than likely, this will probably pass.
Yeah, I mean, the sponsor's not even here.
Yeah.
So he would do the.
JP Madison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just in case any of the people sitting here that voted no are wondering, let me assure you that if this comes up again, I will vote the same way. So I will remain a yes vote. I am not going to change my mind.
JP Bowman.
Yes. I'm going to make a motion, we take another vote.
Motion to reconsider?
I'm sorry?
Consider, but we have to vote.
A reconsideration.
Right.
So, roll call.
Just do a voice vote on the motion to reconsider.
I move to reconsider. I'm telling you, I'm doing this under duress. I feel like this is a lousy situation we put ourselves in, and I'm going to change my vote, but it's with a great deal of regret that we didn't have better notice about the terms of this doggone loan situation. I was totally unaware that it had to be done tonight. And one of my first questions was one that Ms. Madison asked about, why was this an emergency? And I still feel there's some issues there that I've been concerned about, the cash flow. And so I'm gonna go ahead and vote with you yes on this time, get this stinking thing done out of duress. Thank you.
Motion on the floor.
So we have a motion on the floor to reconsider. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
The motion to reconsider
So now we have
the motion to pass.
a motion to pass the ordinance as written.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we pass item 5.1 as read.
Roll call.
Well,
Yes.
yeah.
Ms. Patty, can you call roll?
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison. Butch Pond. Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. JP Madison.
I move we adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.